Early human civilization. The oldest stone chopping tools were found from the Paleolithic Age, which lasted from 2.5 million BC to 8000 BC. During the Neolithic Age, from 8000 BC to 3000 BC, people learned to make pottery, grow crops, and raise animals. The agricultural revolution began around 10,000 BCE, which meant that humans could stay in one spot for long periods of time to grow crops instead of following animal migrations. Rising temperatures worldwide provided longer growing seasons, and more food makes the population grow, which was a major success for the human race. Their legacy nowadays is that humans are still around and people nowadays have longer life expectancies. Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. Mesopotamia was located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers along the eastern edge of the Fertile Crescent. The soil was rich, and the people had to irrigate fields and dig drainage ditches to make more land farmable, which was a success of the era. Babylonians took over in 1792 BC, and Hammurabi was their leader. The Code of Hammurabi was a collection of 282 laws, and a struggle was that the punishments varied by social class. These laws is where the saying, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth comes from. For ancient Egypt, the Nile River was crucial for the Egyptians, and it helped advance their transportation. The Egyptians were polytheistic, and religion was important to daily life. In the Old Kingdom, pharaohs were divine in the eyes of Egyptian citizens, but in the Middle Kingdom, pharaohs were viewed as more human-like, rather than godlike. The Hyksos people invaded the Middle Kingdom and ruled for 100 years until a new dynasty of pharaohs regained power and drove out the Hyksos. The legacy of the ancient Egyptians are the 3 pyramids and the Giza complex.
Ancient India. A success for the Indians was the Aryans' ability to conquer all of Indian land for their own through skilled warfare. However, as their society progressed, they became extremely oppressive. For example, women were considered practically worthless. They were also expected to practice a ritual called sati, where they threw themselves into their husband's fiery pyre at the event of his death. Their legacy was the invention of some of the most popular international religions, Hinduism and Buddhism. Ancient China. A success in the ancient China was the Great Wall. It took centuries to construct and is one of the largest man-made landmarks in the world. A struggle that they faced was the corrupt governments that resulted in the end of most of the dynasties. Their legacies were many vital inventions. For example, the Qin dynasty designed a road system, the Tang created the concept of paper money, and the Ming invented the toothbrush and rocket launchers. Ancient Greece. The successes of the ancient Greek include their scientific approach to things such as medicine, math, and astronomy. They were one of the first to fairly accurately map out the motion of the planets. The philosopher Pythagoras came up with the mathematical equation for what we know today as the Pythagorean theorem, and Aristotle came up with the research-based empirical science. The ancient Greeks faced many struggles, such as with the Spartans, who were the most famous and powerful city-states in all of ancient Greece. These peoples, while excelling at war, lived militaristic lives and were not friendly towards others. Foreigners were discouraged from visiting. Spartans were likewise not allowed to travel abroad, excluding military purposes, and were discouraged from studying philosophy, literature, or even the arts. The ancient Greeks have a remarkable legacy in part due to the government structure. The ancient Greeks' democracy was centralized around the idea that citizens have the power and the ability to control their own destiny, while citizens debated and voted on every issue in Athens. Similarly, and even in today's government, we, the people, have the power to elect representatives and vote in major political issues today. Ancient Rome. In concern to their successes, the ancient Romans advanced in many aspects of society, such as with the creation of aqueducts and the invention of cement. The Roman military was one of the greatest of the period due to its sheer might, amazing military leaders such as Julius Caesar, and the advancement of surgical procedures. However, the ancient Rome had its faults. The biggest struggle was the fact that they found entertainment through watching people die in the Colosseum. This morbid fascination was a very popular pastime, and it consisted of normally 2 gladiators, criminals, or even animals fighting each other. While the fight didn't always go until the death, around 400,000 people died within the walls of that Colosseum. The Roman Empire had a legacy that even today impacts our society. They built long-lasting roads that are still in use today, and they also were the very first to begin using concrete, which allowed stronger and more durable buildings to be made at much a lower cost than they were ever before. In addition to this, the government of the Roman Republic has been a model for many modern-day governments. Many legal concepts, such as trial by jury and the civil rights, were all influenced by the mighty Romans.
The Islams. A major success of the Islams was their rights for women, which were given to them by their holy book, the Quran. Women in the Islam civilization had the right to own property, choose who they married, if they got divorced, and many other rights. The rights that women had in the civilization were more than the rights most women had in other civilizations of that time. They had almost as many rights as men. The rights for women were a major success of the Islam civilization. A struggle the Islams face is radical Islamics. They have interpreted the Quran in ways that it was not meant, such as the holy struggle to mean a holy struggle against non-Muslims. This has caused wars and terroristic attacks on peoples who are not Muslims, though the Quran states that you should not kill non-combatant civilians. The legacy that the Islams left was a very peaceful religion. The Islams believe in tolerance of many other religions and non-violence. The Americas. A major success of the American peoples was their ability to build structures, such as the temples the Mayans built, Machu Picchu from the Incans, and mounds from the mound builders. The Anasazi people also built pueblos into the cliffs of their home. A major struggle for the Mayan people was their inability to defend themselves against the conquistadors. This led to the defeat of their civilization and many lost lives. It also allowed the conquistadors to destroy much of their culture. The legacy the American civilizations left was their democratic abilities, their calendar, and their buildings. The Iroquois and the mound-building people formed a League of Nations, which was so successful that Benjamin Franklin used it as a model for the Union of the British colonies. The Mayans left their calendar, which has been very accurate until the calendar stopped. Many of the civilizations also left buildings, such as the Mayan temples and Machu Picchu. These buildings left evidence of the American civilization's culture. The Mongols. The Mongols' biggest accomplishment as an empire was the amount of land they conquered and the short amount of time it took them. In the 13th and 14th century, the Mongols were able to conquer much of Asia and the Middle East. The Mongols, however, had many struggles. It was estimated they killed 40 million people in their short and bloody reign. The legacy of the Mongols left was the Silk Road. The Silk Road was reopened into use by the Mongol civilization. This allowed them to open trade to and from Europe. It also allowed the cultures of Europe to mix and share ideas with Asia.